The November rain hammered against the industrial windows of Patterson Manufacturing's main floor, each drop creating a rhythmic percussion that normally would have been drowned out by the hum of machinery. But today, the silence was deafening. Line 3 stood motionless, its massive frame looming like a sleeping giant in the fluorescent-lit factory, while 12 of the best engineers in Chicago stood around it with expressions ranging from frustration to defeat. Marcus Chen, the plant's operations director, stood with his arms crossed, watching his team work with increasing agitation. His salt and pepper hair was disheveled from running his hands through it too many times, and his tie hung loose around his neck. The digital display on the wall showed the production loss in real time, $47,000 and climbing. Every minute that Line 3 remained down was another nail in the coffin of this quarter's numbers, and Marcus knew that corporate wouldn't accept excuses. The machine itself was a marvel of German engineering, a $4.2 million automated assembly line that could produce 12,000 precision components per hour when it was running. The problem was that it hadn't been running for 3 days. It had started with a strange vibration, then an unusual grinding sound, and finally a complete shutdown that defied every diagnostic tool they threw at it. "Talk to me, Rodriguez!" Marcus called out to his lead engineer, a stocky man in his 40s with grease-stained coveralls and tired eyes. Carlos Rodriguez climbed down from the maintenance platform, wiping his hands on a rag that was already beyond saving. "It's not the hydraulics, not the electrical system, not the PLCs. We've replaced every component that could possibly be failing. The diagnostics show green across the board, but she won't start." "Green across the board means it should be running," Marcus said, his voice sharp with irritation. "I know what it means," Carlos shot back, too exhausted to worry about diplomacy. "But knowing what it should do and making it actually do it are two different things right now." The other engineers gathered around, their faces showing the strain of 3 sleepless nights. Tom Whitaker, the electrical specialist, had dark circles under his eyes that made him look 10 years older. Jenny Park, their software expert, kept refreshing her laptop screen as if the answer might magically appear. Even Derek Sullivan, the mechanical genius who could usually fix anything with his hands, looked defeated. The factory floor around them continued its reduced operations, other lines humming along at partial capacity, but everyone knew that Line 3 was the heart of the operation. Without it, they couldn't fulfill the Anderson contract, and without the Anderson contract, there would be layoffs before Christmas. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Linda Morrison, the plant manager. "Board meeting in 2 hours. They want answers." He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of anxiety building in his chest. "We're bringing in the manufacturer's rep," Marcus announced, "flying someone in from Stuttgart. They'll be here tomorrow morning." "Tomorrow's too late," Carlos said quietly. "We lose another day, and we're looking at penalty clauses that'll cost more than the repair." "You think I don't know that?" Marcus's voice rose, echoing across the factory floor. Several workers at nearby stations glanced over nervously. He lowered his voice, aware that his stress was showing. "What do you want me to do? We've exhausted every option." "Not every option," Jenny said quietly, her eyes still on her laptop screen. "What's that supposed to mean?" Jenny looked uncomfortable, exchanging glances with Carlos before continuing. "There's someone in housekeeping. Rosa Delgado. She used to work in industrial maintenance before she came here. I've heard some of the third shift guys talking about how she helped them with some equipment issues." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "Housekeeping? You're seriously suggesting we bring in a janitor to fix a $4 million machine that our entire engineering team can't figure out?" "I'm just saying, she has experience. She cleans bathrooms, Jenny." Marcus's words came out harder than he intended, but the pressure was getting to him. "This isn't a clogged toilet. This is precision engineering. We need professionals, not someone who mops floors for minimum wage." The uncomfortable silence that followed was broken only by the rain against the windows and the distant hum of operational machinery. Tom Whitaker shifted his weight, looking like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. "Look," Marcus continued, trying to sound more reasonable. "I appreciate creative thinking, but we need to be realistic here. We're dealing with German precision engineering, complex hydraulic systems, industrial-grade PLCs. This requires expertise, certifications, years of specialized training. We can't just let anyone tinker with it because they once worked on a forklift or something." "It was more than forklifts," Jenny said softly, but Marcus was already walking away, pulling out his phone to call the manufacturer again. As the afternoon wore on, the engineering team continued their futile efforts. They recalibrated sensors that didn't need recalibrating. They replaced components that weren't broken. They ran diagnostic after diagnostic, each one coming back with the same infuriating result. Everything was fine, except that nothing was working. At 4:30 p.m., as the day shift began filtering out and the evening crew filtered in, Marcus stood in his office overlooking the factory floor, staring down at the silent Line 3. His reflection in the window showed a man who looked older than his 42 years, worn down by the weight of responsibility and the fear of failure. There was a knock on his door. "Come in," he called without turning around. Linda Morrison entered, her heels clicking on the tile floor. She was in her 50s, with steel-grey hair pulled back in a severe bun and the kind of presence that commanded attention. She'd been plant manager for 15 years and had seen every kind of crisis the manufacturing world could throw at them. "The board meeting didn't go well," she said without preamble. "I didn't think it would. They're talking about shutting down the entire plant if we can't get Line 3 operational by Monday morning. That's 3 days. Marcus," he turned to face her, "the Stuttgart rep will be here tomorrow. If anyone can fix it, they can. And if they can't, then we're all looking for new jobs." Linda walked to the window, standing beside him and looking down at the factory floor. "I've been doing this a long time, Marcus, long enough to know that sometimes the solution isn't where we expect it to be. If this is about the housekeeping woman, Rosa Delgado worked for 15 years at Precision Dynamics in California. Before she moved here, she was their lead industrial maintenance technician. She has certifications in hydraulic systems, pneumatic controls, and PLC programming." Marcus stared at her. "Then what the hell is she doing cleaning bathrooms?" "Life happens, Marcus. Her husband got sick, needed to be closer to family here in Chicago. She took the first job she could get to keep the insurance. Sometimes people end up in positions that don't reflect their capabilities. Why didn't she apply for our engineering positions?" "She did. HR rejected her because there was a 3-year gap in her resume from when she was caring for her husband full-time. You know how the automated screening works. Gap in employment equals automatic rejection, regardless of qualifications." Marcus felt something uncomfortable stirring in his chest. Shame, maybe. Or the realization that he'd been so certain of his assumptions without knowing any facts. "She's worked here for 8 months, Linda continued. "Night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., cleaning up after everyone else. Never complained, never asked for special treatment. But Tom Whitaker's team had an issue with the coolant system on Line 1 last month. They were stumped for 6 hours. Rosa was cleaning nearby, overheard them talking, and quietly mentioned that it sounded like a pressure valve sequencing problem. They checked it. She was right. Fixed it in 20 minutes. Why didn't Tom mention this? Because he was embarrassed that a woman from housekeeping solved what he couldn't, because this industry still has a lot of people who can't see past job titles and assumptions. Linda's voice was gentle but firm. "I'm not saying she can definitely fix Line 3, but what I am saying is that we're running out of time and options, and maybe it's worth putting aside our pride long enough to ask for help." Marcus looked back down at the silent machine. The loss counter had climbed to $73,000. By Monday, it would be over $400,000, not counting the penalty clauses. He thought about the 230 people who worked at this plant, many of them with families depending on their paychecks. "What shift is she working tonight?" he asked quietly. "She'll be here at 10. Tell her I want to talk to her. Not as a director to a janitor, just tell her I want to talk." Linda nodded and left the office. Marcus stayed at the window until the sky darkened and the factory lights became the brightest thing visible, small islands of illumination. Against the November night, at 9:45 p.m., he went down to the factory floor. The evening shift was in full swing on the operational lines, but Line 3 remained dark and silent. He found himself standing next to it, looking at the mass of metal and electronics that had defeated his entire team. "Mr. Chen?" He turned to find a woman standing a respectful distance away. She was small, maybe 5'3", with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and warm brown eyes that held an intelligence he hadn't expected. She wore the housekeeping uniform, dark blue pants, and a lighter blue polo shirt with the Patterson Manufacturing logo, and carried a clipboard with her evening cleaning assignments. "Rosa Delgado?" he asked, and she nodded. "Linda said you might be able to help with our situation here." "I can try," she said simply. Her voice had a slight accent, musical and soft, but there was confidence underneath it. Marcus felt the weight of his earlier words to Jenny pressing on him. "Before we go any further, I need to apologize. Earlier today, when your name came up, I said some things that were dismissive. I didn't know your background, and I made assumptions based on your current position. That was wrong of me." Rosa's expression didn't change much, but he saw a slight softening around her eyes. "People often see the uniform before they see the person. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it right." "No," she agreed, "but it's honest that you recognize it." She looked in past him at Line 3. "May I?" "Please." Rosa approached the machine with the kind of reverence Marcus usually only saw in master craftsmen. She didn't immediately start poking at things or checking connections. Instead, she walked slowly around the entire line, her eyes taking in every detail. She stopped occasionally, tilting her head as if listening for something. "Tell me about the failure sequence," she said. Marcus recounted the timeline, the initial vibration, the grinding sound, the shutdown, the 3 days of unsuccessful diagnostics. Rosa listened without interrupting, her eyes never leaving the machine. "And your team has verified all the standard systems? Hydraulics, electrical, pneumatics, everything. Multiple times. The diagnostics show perfect function, but the machine won't run. Won't even attempt to start." Rosa nodded slowly, still walking around the machine. She stopped at a control panel, running her fingers lightly over the surface without actually touching any buttons. "May I access the maintenance logs?" Marcus pulled out his phone and brought up the digital logs, handing it to her. She scrolled through slowly, her brow furrowing as she read. After several minutes, she handed the phone back. "I need to hear it fail," she said. "What?" "I need you to attempt a startup sequence. I need to hear what it sounds like when it tries and fails." Marcus hesitated. "The engineers have been nervous about attempting starts. They're worried about causing additional damage if there's something wrong they haven't identified." "I understand their concern," Rosa said. "But machines speak to you if you know how to listen. Right now I'm reading a story, but I need to hear it told." Something about the way she said it, the quiet confidence, made Marcus nod. He called Carlos Rodriguez, who arrived 15 minutes later looking exhausted and skeptical. When he saw Rosa standing next to Marcus, his expression shifted to confusion. "Carlos, this is Rosa Delgado. She's going to take a look at Line 3. I thought we were waiting for the Stuttgart rep. We still are, but Rosa has industrial maintenance experience and we're running out of time. I'd like to try a startup sequence so she can hear the failure." Carlos looked like he wanted to argue, but the dark circles under his eyes and the weight of 3 sleepless nights made him simply nod. "It's your call, boss." They moved to the main control station. Rosa positioned herself near. The primary junction box, about 20 feet from the main frame. She closed her eyes, head tilted slightly, hands resting lightly on the exterior panel of the machine. "Ready when you are," she said. Carlos initiated the startup sequence. The machine hummed to life, various systems coming online in their programmed order. Lights flickered on the control panels. Pneumatic systems hissed softly. Then came the grinding sound Marcus had heard before, a harsh metallic screech that set teeth on edge, and everything shut down. "Again, please," Rosa said, her eyes still closed. Carlos looked at Marcus, who nodded. They ran the sequence again. Same result. Rosa's expression remained calm, focused, as if she were listening to a symphony instead of a failing machine. "One more time, but stop the sequence the moment you hear the grinding." They tried again. The moment the grinding started, Carlos killed the sequence. Rosa's eyes opened. "The timing," she said softly. "Did you notice the timing?" "What about it?" Marcus asked. "The grinding starts exactly 4.7 seconds into the sequence, every single time. That's not random mechanical failure. That's a sequencing problem." "We've checked the sequencing," Carlos said, his voice defensive. "The PLC shows perfect timing on all operations." "I'm sure it does," Rosa said, her tone gentle and non-confrontational. "But there are two kinds of sequencing in a machine this complex. There's the programmed sequencing in the PLCs, and there's the mechanical sequencing of the physical components. They have to be perfectly synchronized." She walked to a specific section of the machine, about midway down the line. "This is a synchronous assembly line, yes? Multiple operations happening in precise coordination." "Yes," Marcus confirmed. "And you've had this machine for how long?" 4 years. Rosa nodded, running her hand along the frame. 4 years of constant operation. Heat cycles, cool cycles, vibration, stress. She knelt down, peering underneath a section of the framework. "Do you have a flashlight?" Carlos handed her one from his tool belt. She shined it into the gap, moving it slowly back and forth. Then she stood up, her expression thoughtful. "I think I know what the problem is," she said. "But I need to confirm something before I can be sure. Can someone get me the original installation specifications for this machine? Not the operational manual, but the actual installation specs from when it was first set up." "Those would be in the archive," Carlos said. "I can have them pulled up." "Thank you. I also need to see the maintenance history for the foundation mounts." "The foundation mounts?" Carlos looked confused. "Why would the foundation mounts affect operation?" "Maybe they don't," Rosa said, "but I need to check." While Carlos went to retrieve the documents, Marcus found himself studying Rosa with new appreciation. She moved with purpose but without urgency, examining the machine with the kind of attention to detail that spoke of genuine expertise. "How did you end up in housekeeping?" he asked, then immediately regretted the question. "I'm sorry, that's personal. You don't have to answer." But Rosa smiled, a warm expression that transformed her face. "It's okay. Life takes us on unexpected paths sometimes. My husband Daniel, he got sick. Cancer. We needed to move here to be near his family, to help with his care. The medical bills were—" She paused, searching for the word. "Crushing. I needed a job with benefits immediately, and housekeeping was available. I thought it would be temporary, just until Daniel got better." "I'm sorry," Marcus said quietly. "He's in remission now," Rosa said, her smile returning. 2 years clear. We're grateful. But you stayed in housekeeping. Once you're in a position, it's hard to move up. And honestly, I didn't mind the work. It's honest work and it pays the bills. But I miss this." She gestured at the machine. "I miss the challenge of it, the puzzle solving, the satisfaction of bringing something back to life." Carlos returned with a tablet showing the archived documents. Rosa took it and began scrolling through, occasionally stopping to read more carefully. After about 10 minutes, she handed the tablet back and walked to a specific section of the machine's base. "Do you have the vibration analysis data from when the problem first started?" she asked. Jenny Park, who had arrived sometime during the conversation, pulled it up. On her laptop, Rosa studied the graphs, nodding slowly. "There," she said, pointing to a specific spike in the data. "That's not a mechanical failure. That's settling." "Settling?" Marcus asked. "The machine is installed on foundation bolts anchored to the concrete floor. Over 4 years of operation, with constant vibration and thermal expansion and contraction, those bolts can shift. Not much, maybe a few millimeters, but on a machine this precise, a few millimeters is everything." She pulled up the installation specs on the tablet. When this machine was installed, the tolerances for the foundation mounts were specified down to 0.05 millimeters. If those mounts have shifted even slightly, it would affect the alignment of every component in the entire line. The sensors would still read correctly because they're measuring relative position, not absolute position. The diagnostics would show green because, relative to each other, everything is where it should be. But relative to the foundation, everything is just slightly off. Carlos was staring at her. That would explain why the grinding starts at exactly the same point in the sequence. It's when the heaviest component cycles into motion and the misalignment causes the interference. "Exactly," Rosa said. "But we checked the mechanical alignments," Carlos protested, though his voice lacked conviction now. "You checked them against the machine's own reference points," Rosa said gently. "I'm suggesting we need to check them against the original installation specifications, against the foundation itself." Marcus felt something stirring in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the possibility of hope. "How do we verify this?" "We need to check the foundation bolt tension and alignment against the original specs. If I'm right, we'll find that they've shifted. Then we need to recalibrate the entire machine to the foundation, not to its own reference points." "That's a complete realignment," Carlos said. "That's a 12-hour job minimum." "I know," Rosa said, "but if I'm right, it will fix the problem. If I'm wrong, you're no worse off than you are now, and you'll have the Stuttgart rep here tomorrow to try something else." Marcus looked at Carlos, then at Jenny, then back at Rosa. The factory hummed around them, all the operational lines working smoothly, while Liner 3 sat silent, a $4 million monument to their failure to solve the problem. "Do it," Marcus said. "Whatever you need, whatever resources. You have them. Just tell us what you need." Rosa's smile was brilliant. "I'll need the precision leveling equipment, the laser alignment tools, and the foundation bolt calibration specs. And I'll need your team's help. I can't do this alone." "You've got it," Marcus said. He looked at his engineers. "Everyone okay with this?" There was a moment of hesitation, and Marcus could see the pride and ego warring with pragmatism on their faces. But Carlos nodded first, and the others followed. "Let's fix this thing," Carlos said. As Rosa began laying out the plan, organizing the team, delegating tasks with the easy authority of someone who had done this kind of work for years, Marcus stepped back and watched. This woman, whom he'd dismissed earlier as nobody, was commanding the respect and cooperation of his entire engineering team through nothing more than competence and quiet confidence. And for the first time in 3 days, Marcus allowed himself to believe that they might actually solve this problem. The clock on the wall showed 10:47 p.m. They had just over 60 hours until the Monday deadline. The real work was about to begin. The factory floor had taken on the atmosphere of a surgical theater. Precision instruments were carefully arranged on rolling carts. Laser leveling equipment cast thin red lines across the concrete floor, creating a grid of light that looked like something from a science fiction movie. The overhead lights had been adjusted to eliminate shadows, giving everything a stark, clinical clarity. Rosa stood at a whiteboard, sketching out the machine's foundation mount configuration, while Carlos Rodriguez and the other engineers gathered around. It was nearly midnight, and most of the factory had emptied out, leaving just the core team and the skeleton crew keeping the other production lines running. The machine has 16 primary foundation mounts, Rosa explained, her marker moving across the whiteboard in confident strokes. 8 along the main frame, 4 on the drive assembly, and 4 on the discharge end. They're arranged in a specific pattern to distribute the operational stress evenly across the foundation. She drew circles at each mount point, then began adding measurements. According to the installation specs, each mount must be within 0.05 millimeters of its specified height relative to the reference datum. That's about half the thickness of a human hair. Tom Whitaker let out a low whistle. And you think they've all shifted? Not all of them, Rosa said. Probably just a few, maybe even just 1 or 2. But in a synchronized system like this, it only takes one mount being off to throw everything out of alignment. Jenny Park was taking notes on her laptop, nodding along. It's like a table with 4 legs. If one leg is shorter, the whole table rocks. Exactly, Rosa said, except this table is processing 12,000 components per hour. And when it rocks, parts don't just fall off. They jam, they grind, they break. Derek Sullivan, the mechanical specialist, had been quiet up to this point, but now he spoke up. I've been thinking about the timeline. The vibration started getting worse about 6 weeks ago, right? Then progressively got worse until the shutdown 3 days ago. Right, Carlos confirmed. We had that small earthquake in October, Derek continued. Remember, nothing major, maybe a 3.2 on the Richter scale, but it was centered pretty close to here. Rosa's eyes lit up. That could have been the initial displacement. Small tremor, just enough to shift 1 or 2 mounts slightly. Then, with continued operation, the stress from that misalignment gradually worsened until the system couldn't compensate anymore. Marcus, who had been watching from the side, stepped forward. Okay, so, assuming you're right about the cause, walk me through the fix. What exactly do we need to do? Rosa turned to a fresh section of the whiteboard. First, we establish a reference datum. That's a fixed point in space that we know hasn't moved. We'll use the floor itself at a distance from the machine, verified with the laser level. Then we measure each foundation mount's position relative to that datum. Once we find which mounts are out of specification, Carlos said, picking up the thread, we adjust them back to the correct position. But here's the tricky part, Rosa continued. We can't just adjust the mounts in isolation. The machine is one integrated system. If we adjust Mount A, it affects the stress distribution on Mounts B, C, and D. We need to bring them all back into alignment in the correct sequence, with the right amount of adjustment at each step. Like tuning a guitar, Jenny said. You can't just tune one string at a time. You have to go back and forth making small adjustments, because changing one string affects all the others. That's a perfect analogy, Rosa said, smiling. Tom spoke up, his voice cautious. I'm not questioning the theory, but this is incredibly precise work. If we make a mistake, we could make things worse. How confident are you that this is actually the problem? It was a fair question, and Rosa met it with honesty. I can't be 100% certain until we start measuring. But everything I'm seeing points to this, the timing of the failure, the consistency of where it fails, the fact that all your component-level diagnostics come back clean. It all fits the pattern of a foundation alignment problem. And if you're wrong, Tom pressed, then we've spent a night doing detailed measurements and gained valuable diagnostic information. The Stuttgart rep can build on that work when they arrive. Rosa's expression was serious but calm. But I don't think I'm wrong. Marcus looked at his watch. 12:17 a.m. We're burning time talking. Let's start measuring. The team split into groups. Rosa and Carlos took the main frame mounts. Tom and Derek handled the drive assembly. Jenny coordinated the data collection, setting up a real-time display on the large monitor so everyone could see the measurements as they came in. The laser level was positioned on a sturdy tripod 30 feet from the machine, far enough away that they could be confident the floor hadn't been affected by any settling. Rosa checked it 3 times, adjusting it with minute turns of the calibration screws until the bubble level showed perfect. "Reference datum established," she announced. "Let's see what we've got." The first mount they measured was within specification. So was the second and the third. But on the 4th mount, the laser beam that should have hit exactly at the marked reference point on the mount was off by nearly 2 millimeters. "There's our culprit," Carlos said, but Rosa shook her head. "Mark it, but keep measuring. There might be others." They were methodical, working their way around the entire machine. Each measurement was taken 3 times and recorded. The process was painstaking, but Rosa insisted on it. "Precision matters," she said, when Tom suggested they could move faster with single measurements. "We do this right, or we don't do it at all." By 2 a.m., they had completed the full survey. Of the 16 mounts, 5 were out of specification. 4 of them were only slightly off, within a millimeter. But one mount, number 12 on the discharge end, was off by 2.3 millimeters. Jenny pulled up a 3D model of the machine on her screen, highlighting the problem mounts. "Look at the pattern," she said. "They're not random. They're all on one side of the machine, and they all show displacement in the same direction." Rosa studied the pattern, her mind working through the physics. The earthquake likely shifted the entire slab slightly in that direction. Most of the machine moved with it, but these mounts caught, creating the differential. "So how do we fix it?" Derek asked. Rosa pulled up the installation manual on the tablet and began reading through the adjustment procedures. "We need to loosen the mounting bolts, use hydraulic jacks to raise or lower each mount to the correct position, then retorque the bolts to specification. But we have to do it in the right sequence." She began sketching on the whiteboard again, numbering the adjustments. "We start with the least displaced mounts first, working our way up to mount 12. Each time we make an adjustment, we remeasure all the mounts to see how the stress redistribution affects them." Carlos was nodding along, his earlier skepticism replaced by professional respect. "It's going to be iterative. We might have to go through several cycles of adjustment before everything settles into spec." "Exactly," Rosa said, "and we need to be patient. Rushing this will just create new problems." Marcus had been making calls, and now he stepped forward. "I've got maintenance bringing down hydraulic jacks and the torque wrench calibrated for these bolts. ETA 15 minutes. I've also ordered dinner for everyone. Pizza and coffee are being delivered at 3 a.m. "Thank you," Rosa said. She looked around at the team, seeing the exhaustion on their faces, but also something else: engagement, purpose, the excitement that comes from being on the verge of solving a difficult problem. "Before we start adjustments, let's take a short break. Get some water, stretch your legs. We need to be sharp for this." As the team dispersed, Marcus found himself standing next to Rosa, both of them looking at the silent machine. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Of course. Earlier you said you were used to people seeing the uniform before the person. How do you handle that? The frustration of being underestimated?" Rosa was quiet for a moment, considering the question. "I think about my abuela, my grandmother. She used to clean houses in Mexico City before she came to the United States. Rich people's houses, beautiful places. She told me that every surface she cleaned it like it was in her own home. She took pride in the work, not because of what others thought, but because of what she knew about herself." She turned to look at Marcus. "I know what I'm capable of. I know the value of my skills and knowledge. If someone else can't see that because of the uniform I wear or the accent I speak with, that's their limitation, not mine. It used to make me angry, but anger is exhausting. Now I just try to do good work and let that speak for itself. That takes a lot of strength," Marcus said quietly. "Or maybe just stubbornness," Rosa said with a smile. "My husband says I'm very stubborn." "How is he doing?" "Your husband?" "Daniel is doing well. He's at home tonight. probably watching old westerns and eating ice cream, which he's supposed to be limiting. Her smile was fond. But he's alive, and he's here, and that's what matters. The rest we can figure out. The maintenance crew arrived with the equipment and the break ended. Rosa gathered the team again, going over the plan one more time. We're going to take this slow and methodical. Safety first, precision second, speed last. Everyone understand? There were nods all around. They started with mount number 7, which was off by 0.8 millimeters. Rosa and Carlos worked together, carefully loosening the 4 bolts that held the mount to the foundation, while Derek positioned the hydraulic jack. Tom operated the laser level, calling out measurements as they made micro-adjustments. Up 0.2 millimeters, Tom called. Derek made the adjustment. 0.1, Tom said. Another adjustment. 0.05, perfect, hold it there. Carlos torqued down the bolts while the jack held the position, working in a star pattern to ensure even pressure. When he was done, Rosa had him verify the torque on all 4 bolts twice before they moved the jack away. Mount 7 secured and verified, Rosa announced. Jenny logged it in the system. They remeasured all 16 mounts. Mount 7 was now perfect, but the adjustment had caused tiny shifts in mounts 6 and 8. Not enough to put them out of spec yet, but noticeable. It's like whack-a-mole, Derek muttered, but he was grinning. It's physics, Rosa corrected gently. Everything is connected. Every action has reactions. We just need to work through them systematically. The pizza and coffee arrived at 3 a.m., and they took another short break. Marcus watched his team gathering around the boxes. The conversation animated as they discussed the adjustments, debated the sequence, proposed refinements to their approach. This was his team at their best, engaged and collaborative, working together toward a common goal. And at the center of it, not dominating but facilitating, was Rosa. She listened more than she talked, asked questions instead of giving orders, made suggestions rather than demands. But somehow she was clearly leading, and everyone was following. They worked through the night, mount by mount, adjustment by adjustment, measurement by measurement. Some mounts needed multiple passes. They'd get one perfect, only to have it shift slightly when they adjusted the next one, requiring them to come back and fine-tune it again. At 5:30 a.m., as the early November dawn began to lighten the sky outside, they torqued down the final bolt on Mount 12. Rosa had been working for over 7 hours straight, and Marcus could see the exhaustion in her face, but her hands were steady as she triple-checked the torque reading. Remeasure all. Mounts, she said. Final verification. The team went through the entire sequence again, checking each mount against the reference datum. Jenny called out the readings as they came in. Mount 1, 002 millimeters high, within spec. Mount 2, 001 millimeters low, within spec. Mount 3, 000, perfect. And so on, through all 16 mounts. Every single one was now within the 0.05 millimeter tolerance specified in the installation manual. When Jenny called out the final mount, there was a moment of silence. Then Carlos let out a whoop that echoed across the factory floor. "We did it," Tom said, his voice full of disbelief and exhaustion and joy. "We did it," Rosa agreed quietly, a smile spreading across her face. Marcus checked his watch. 6:15 a.m. The day shift would be arriving in 45 minutes. He looked at his team, all of them showing the effects of the sleepless night, but all of them grinning. "Before we test it," he said, "I want to say something. I've been doing this job for 15 years, and I've worked with a lot of talented people, but I have never seen a more impressive display of problem-solving, collaboration, and pure technical skill than what I witnessed tonight. Rosa, you didn't just identify the problem, you led us through fixing it with patience, precision, and professionalism. Thank you." Rosa ducked her head, clearly embarrassed by the attention. "It was everyone's work. I just had an idea. The team made it happen." An idea that no one else had, Carlos said. An idea that solved what 12 engineers and 3 days of diagnostics couldn't. That's not nothing. Okay, Marcus said. The moment of truth. Let's see if we actually fixed it. Rosa, would you like to do the honors? Rosa walked to the control panel, her hand hovering over the startup button. Everyone ready? They nodded. She pressed the button. The machine hummed to life. Systems came online in their programmed sequence. Pneumatic. Hisses, hydraulic whirs, electronic beeps. 4 seconds passed, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, no grinding sound. The machine continued its startup sequence smoothly, every system activating in perfect synchronization. Conveyor belts began moving, robotic arms cycled through their range of motion. Sensors blinked green across all the control panels. And then Line 3, silent for 3 days, was running. Carlos initiated a test cycle, feeding dummy components through the system. They moved through, each station smoothly, precisely exactly as designed. The machine that had been completely dead was now operating perfectly. Jenny was crying, though she tried to hide it. Tom was laughing. Derek was shaking his head in amazement. Carlos walked over to Rosa and offered his hand. I owe you an apology, he said. When Tom suggested bringing you in, I thought it was a waste of time. I was wrong. You're not just good at this. You're better than most engineers I've worked with. Rosa shook his hand, her grip firm. You would have figured it out eventually. I just happened to have seen this particular problem before. Don't sell yourself short, Carlos said. What you did tonight was exceptional. As the day shift began arriving, word spread quickly. Line 3 was running. The impossible fix had been accomplished. Workers gathered around watching the machine operate, the relief visible on their faces. Jobs were safe. The plant would make its quotas. Christmas would be secure for 230 families. Linda Morrison arrived at 7 a.m., took one look at the operational machine, and smiled. I knew you had it in you, she said to Marcus. It wasn't me, Marcus said. He looked over at Rosa, who was methodically gathering up the tools, organizing them for return to maintenance. It was her. Linda walked over to Rosa. My office, please. When you have a moment. Rosa nodded, a flicker of concern crossing her face. She finished organizing the tools, then followed Linda upstairs. Marcus wanted to follow, to make sure Rosa wasn't in trouble, but Linda had been clear. She wanted to speak with Rosa alone. He forced himself to stay on the factory floor, watching Line 3 run, producing component after perfect component. 30 minutes later, Rosa returned. She was crying, but she was smiling. What happened? Marcus asked. Are you okay? More than okay, Rosa said. Mrs. Morrison offered me a position, Senior Industrial Maintenance Engineer. It's a 45% raise, full benefits, and she's backdating it to cover the last 8 months, to make up for the time I spent in housekeeping when I should have been in engineering. Marcus felt a wave of relief and happiness. That's incredible. Congratulations. But that's not all, Rosa continued. She's instituting a new policy. Any employee in any position can apply for internal transfer reviews. No more automatic rejections for resume gaps. Every application gets reviewed by a human, not just the automated system. She said it's the Rosa Delgado policy. She's naming it after you. She said if we'd had that policy 8 months ago, I would have been on the engineering team from the start, and this whole crisis might have been avoided. She wants to make sure we don't miss out on talent because of rigid systems. Marcus pulled her into a hug, surprising both of them. You deserve this. All of it. As the morning continued, the factory returned to normal operations. The crisis was over. The machine was running. The team, exhausted but triumphant, finally headed home to sleep. But something had fundamentally changed. The plant that had almost closed was now secure. The woman who had been invisible was now recognized. And Marcus Chen, who had dismissed her as nobody, had learned a lesson about assumptions, prejudice, and the incredible talent that often hides in plain sight. As he watched Rosa walk across the factory floor in her housekeeping uniform for what would be the last time, several workers stopped to shake her hand, to thank her, to congratulate her. She handled the attention with grace and humility, but there was a new confidence in her bearing, a straightness to her spine that spoke of someone who had been seen and valued. Tomorrow, she would start her new position. Tomorrow she would wear a different uniform, carry a different title, command a different level of respect. But Marcus knew that Rosa Delgado had always been exactly who she was now. The only thing that had changed was that other people could finally see it. The Monday morning staff meeting had a different energy than usual. The conference room on the second floor of Patterson Manufacturing's administrative building overlooked the factory floor, and through the large windows, Line 3 was visible, running smoothly, its rhythmic operation a stark contrast to the silent, broken machine that had threatened the entire facility just 72 hours earlier. Marcus Chen sat at his usual position at the conference table, but his attention kept drifting to the factory floor below. He could see Rosa Delgado, no longer in the light blue housekeeping uniform, but wearing the navy blue coveralls of the engineering team, walking alongside Carlos Rodriguez as they conducted the morning inspection. Even from this distance, Marcus could see the difference in how other workers interacted with her. There were handshakes, respectful nods, engaged conversations. The invisible woman had become visible. "Marcus, are you with us?" He turned his attention back to the meeting. Linda Morrison was looking at him with an amused expression. Around the table sat the other department heads: Philip Chen from HR, Sarah Williams from Quality Control, James Tucker from Logistics, and Michael O'Brien from Finance. "Sorry," Marcus said. "Just making sure everything's running smoothly down there." "I think we can safely say things are running better than smoothly," Linda said. She pulled up a presentation on the large monitor. At the end of the room, production numbers from this morning show Line 3 operating at 103% of baseline efficiency. That's better than it was running before the failure. Michael O'Brien, a thin man in his 60s with wire-rimmed glasses, leaned forward. "How is that possible? I thought we just brought it back to operational status." "The realignment process that Rosa and the team performed," Marcus explained, "didn't just fix the immediate problem. It essentially gave us a complete recalibration of the entire machine. It's now operating at more precise tolerances than it has in years." "Interesting," Michael said, making notes on his tablet. "And the Stuttgart manufacturer's representative?" "We sent them home," Marcus said. "When they arrived Saturday morning and saw the machine running, they conducted their own diagnostic review and confirmed that the foundation alignment issue was indeed the root cause. They were actually impressed with how we handled it." Sarah Williams spoke up. "I've been reviewing the quality data from the first production run this morning. Defect rate is down by 23% compared to our previous baseline." "Better alignment means better precision," Marcus said. "Every component is now being produced closer to the ideal specification." Linda advanced the presentation to the next slide. "Which brings us to the main topic of this meeting. We need to talk about what happened, why it happened, and how we make sure we learn from it." The mood in the room shifted slightly. Everyone knew this was coming. "The facts are these," Linda continued. "We had a critical machinery failure that stumped our entire engineering team for 3 days. The solution came from an employee in housekeeping who had extensive relevant experience, but had been systematically excluded from engineering positions by our hiring processes. If Rosa Delgado hadn't happened to be working the night shift when Marcus decided to ask for her help, we would likely be facing a plant shutdown right now." Philip Chen from HR looked uncomfortable. "In my defense, the automated screening system is industry standard. We process hundreds of applications a month. We can't manually review every single one." "I understand that," Linda said, her voice calm but firm. But the automated system rejected a highly qualified candidate because of a 3-year employment gap that occurred because she was caring for a seriously ill family member. The system couldn't understand the context, couldn't see the human being behind the resume, and we lost 8 months of valuable contribution from a talented engineer because of it. "So, what are you proposing?" Philip asked. "I'm not proposing anything," Linda said. "I'm telling you what we're implementing, effective immediately. Every internal transfer application gets reviewed by a human being. Every external application that makes it past the initial screening gets a secondary human review. And every application that's rejected for an employment gap gets flagged for manual evaluation of the circumstances. That's going to significantly increase HR's workload," Philip said. "Then we'll increase HR's budget to handle it," Michael O'Brien said, surprising everyone. The finance director was known for his tight control over spending. "If we'd had this policy in place 8 months ago, Rosa would have been on our engineering team from the start. We would have avoided this crisis entirely. The lost production over 3 days cost us $187,000 in direct losses and another $300,000 in penalty clauses we're still negotiating. Spending money on proper HR review processes is a lot cheaper than that." Linda nodded her approval. "Thank you, Michael. Philip, I want the new procedures in place by the end of the month, and I want you to personally review the files of every current employee to see if anyone else might be working in positions below their qualifications." "That could be dozens of people," Philip protested. "Then it's dozens of people we're not utilizing properly. Get it done." Sarah Williams raised her hand. "What about recognition for Rosa? She literally saved this plant. She deserves more than just a promotion and back pay." "Agreed," Linda said, "which is why I've nominated her for the Regional Manufacturing Excellence Award. It's awarded annually to an individual who has made exceptional contributions to manufacturing innovation and problem solving. The ceremony is in 3 months. Marcus felt a swell of satisfaction. The Regional Manufacturing Excellence Award was a big deal in the industry. Winners received significant recognition, often leading to career opportunities and advancement. "There's one more thing," Linda said. "I want to address the culture issue." The room went quiet. "Let me be very direct," Linda continued. "We have a problem with how we value people in this organization. We have a hierarchy which is normal and necessary, but we've let that hierarchy become a barrier to seeing talent, ability, and potential. Marcus, when Rosa's name first came up, what was your reaction?" Marcus felt his face flush. "I dismissed the idea. I said she was a janitor, that we needed professionals, not someone who cleaned bathrooms." "And you're not alone in that," Linda said, her tone gentler now. "I've been watching how people interact across departments. Engineering doesn't talk to maintenance unless something's broken. Office staff barely acknowledge the cleaning crew. We've created silos that aren't just operational, they're social, and they're preventing us from being as good as we could be." James Tucker from Logistics nodded. "I've noticed it too. When I started here, I made a point of learning everyone's name on the loading dock. The insights I got from just talking to the guys unloading trucks improved our receiving process significantly, but a lot of managers never even go down there. So, here's what we're going to do," Linda said. "Starting next month, we're instituting cross-functional team meetings. Every department sends representatives to monthly sessions where we discuss challenges, share insights, and break down these silos. Everyone's voice matters, regardless of job title." "That's a good start," Sarah said, "but meetings alone won't change culture." "You're right," Linda agreed, "which is why I'm also implementing a shadow program. Any employee can request to shadow someone in a different department for a day to learn about their work. Want to understand what engineering does? Spend a day with Rosa or Carlos. Curious about logistics? Follow James around for a shift. We need people to understand and value what their colleagues do." Michael O'Brien was nodding. "I like it. It builds empathy and understanding, and it might help us identify more Rosas, talented people who are in the wrong positions. The meeting continued for another hour, working through the details of the new policies, the timelines for implementation, the metrics they would use to measure success. But Marcus found his mind drifting back to Friday night, to his own prejudices and assumptions, to the lesson he'd learned. When the meeting finally adjourned, Linda asked Marcus to stay behind. "How are you doing with all this?" she asked once they were alone. "Honestly, I'm embarrassed. I was so quick to dismiss Rosa, so certain that her current position defined her capabilities. I've been thinking about how many other people I might have underestimated over the years." "That awareness is important," Linda said, "but don't let embarrassment become paralysis. What matters is what you do now, how you grow from this." "I know. I've been thinking about the engineering team. We're all good at what we do, but we've become insular. We only hire people who look like us, talk like us, have the same educational background. We're missing out on diverse perspectives and experiences. What are you going to do about it?" Marcus had been thinking about this all weekend. "I want to create a technical apprenticeship program. Partner with community colleges, bring in people who might not have traditional engineering degrees, but who have aptitude and passion. Give them real training, real opportunities to grow, and I want Rosa to help me design it." Linda smiled. "That's excellent. Do it. You have my full support and whatever budget you need within reason." They walked out of the conference room together, heading down to the factory floor. As they descended the stairs, Marcus could see Rosa and Carlos still conducting their inspection, now joined by Tom Whitaker and Jenny Park. The team was gathered around a monitoring station, Rosa pointing to something on the screen, while the others listened intently. "She's a natural teacher," Linda observed. "Look how engaged they are." It was true. The other engineers were leaning in, asking questions, taking notes. There was none of the ego or competitive tension that sometimes plagued engineering teams, just genuine collaboration and mutual respect. As they approached the group, Carlos noticed them and waved. "Boss, come check this out. Rosa's showing us some predictive maintenance techniques she learned at her old job. We can identify potential failures weeks before they happen." "We've been reactive for too long," Rosa was saying. "Always waiting for something to break before we fix it. But if you track the right data points, you can see the patterns. Temperature fluctuations, vibration frequencies, power consumption variations. They all tell a story if you know how to read them." Jenny was practically vibrating with excitement. "We could set up automated alerts. The system could flag potential issues and notify us before they become critical." "Exactly," Rosa said. "At my old facility, we reduced unplanned downtime by 67% in the first year after implementing predictive maintenance." Tom looked at Marcus. "Why haven't we been doing this all along?" "Because we didn't know we could," Marcus admitted. "Or more accurately, we didn't think to ask. We got comfortable with our reactive approach because it's how we'd always done things." Rosa pulled up a series of graphs on her tablet, showing the data they'd been collecting from Line 3 since it came back online. "Look at this. Even in just 3 days of operation, you can see patterns. This temperature spike here? It's minor now, but if we see it trending upward over the next few weeks, it could indicate a bearing that's starting to wear. We can replace it during scheduled maintenance instead of waiting for it to fail." "That's brilliant," Carlos said. "How long would it take to set this up across all our production lines?" "A few weeks to install the additional sensors we'd need, maybe another month to gather baseline data and establish the normal operating parameters. Then we'd be able to start identifying anomalies." "Let's do it," Marcus said. "Rosa, can you put together a proposal? Timeline, equipment needs, budget estimate? We'll present it to Linda next week." Rosa nodded, making notes on her tablet. As the group continued discussing the implementation details, Marcus stepped back and just watched. This was what good teams looked like: diverse perspectives, open communication, mutual respect, and at the center of it was someone who, just days ago, had been invisible to most of them. The morning shift progressed into afternoon. Line 3 continued. Its smooth operation, now being monitored not just for production, but for the subtle patterns that might predict future issues. The Stuttgart manufacturer's report had been filed, confirming Rosa's diagnosis and commending the plant's technical response. Around 2 p.m., Marcus's phone rang. It was an unknown number with a California area code. "Marcus Chen," he answered. "Mr. Chen, my name is David Thornton. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Precision Dynamics in San Jose. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." Marcus felt a chill. Precision Dynamics was Rosa's former employer, one of the largest manufacturing operations on the West Coast. "Not at all. How can I help you?" "I'm calling about Rosa Delgado. I understand she's now working for you in an engineering capacity." "That's correct. She's been with us for 8 months and just recently moved into our Senior Industrial Maintenance Engineer position. I'm going to be direct, Mr. Chen. I want to hire her back. I want to offer her a position as our Director of Maintenance Engineering, managing a team of 20 engineers across 3 facilities. The salary would be $160,000 a year, plus full benefits and relocation assistance." Marcus felt his stomach drop. It was an incredible offer, far more than Patterson Manufacturing could match. "That's very generous. Rosa Delgado is one of the most talented maintenance engineers I've ever worked with. When she left 3 years ago to care for her husband, we lost one of our best people. I've been hoping she'd come back, but I didn't know where she'd ended up until a colleague sent me an article this morning about your facility's successful emergency repair. The quote from your plant manager mentioned Rosa by name." "I see. I know this puts you in a difficult position," Thornton continued, "but I thought I should reach out to you first, out of professional courtesy. I plan to contact Rosa directly, but I wanted you to be aware." "I appreciate that," Marcus said, his mind racing. "Can I ask you something? When Rosa left, did you try to keep her?" There was a pause. "Not as hard as I should have. Her husband was sick. She needed to be near family in Chicago. I thought it was a done deal, that there was nothing I could offer that would make her stay. In hindsight, I should have tried harder. I should have asked what we could do to help, whether there were flexible arrangements we could make. I didn't, and that's on me." "Well, Mr. Thornton, I can't stop you from making Rosa an offer, but I can tell you that she's valued here. She's making a real difference, and we're not going to let her go without a fight." "Fair enough. May the best offer win." After hanging up, Marcus sat in his office, staring out at the factory floor. He could see Rosa down there, laughing at something Carlos had said, completely unaware that her life was about to get complicated again. He called Linda Morrison. "We have a problem," he said. The coffee shop was busy. With the evening crowd, business professionals stopping in after work, students studying for exams, couples on first dates. Rosa sat at a corner table, nursing a cappuccino and staring at her phone. The email from David Thornton had arrived 2 hours ago, laying out the offer in detail. Director of Maintenance Engineering, $160,000 salary, leadership position, return to California. It was everything she'd worked toward before Daniel got sick, everything she'd put aside to focus on his care. And now it was being offered to her on a silver platter. Her phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. "How's the coffee? Make your decision yet?" She smiled and typed back, "Coffee's good. Decision's complicated. Come home, we'll talk." Rosa gathered her things and walked out into the crisp November evening. Chicago in late November was cold, the kind of cold that came with the promise of snow. She pulled her coat tighter and started the 15-minute walk to their apartment. Daniel was waiting when she arrived, seated in his favorite armchair with a book in his lap. He'd put on weight since the remission, healthy weight that filled out his face and brought color back to his cheeks. The cancer had taken so much from him, but it hadn't taken his gentle spirit or his sharp mind. "So," he said as she hung up her coat, "tell me about this offer. Rosa sat on the couch across from him and laid it all out. The position, the salary, the return to California, the opportunity to work at the highest level of her field, managing teams, influencing strategy, making a real impact. It's an incredible opportunity, Daniel said when she finished. It is. But, Rosa sighed, but we just got settled here. Your family is here, your support system. We have the apartment, our routines, our doctors, and my new position at Patterson. It's good. It's meaningful work, and I'm making a difference. For $95,000 a year, Daniel said gently. This California offer is almost double that. Money isn't everything, says the woman who worked 2 jobs to keep our insurance active while I was in treatment, Daniel said, his voice full of love and gratitude. Rosa, you gave up so much for me. Your career, your position, your opportunities. If you want this job, if you want to go back to California, I'll support you completely. We'll figure out the logistics. But your family can visit, can FaceTime, can fly out for holidays. Rosa, I'm in remission, I'm healthy, you don't have to structure your entire life around my illness anymore. Rosa felt tears welling up. I don't know what I want. 3 days ago, I was cleaning bathrooms and thinking that was my life now. Then everything changed so fast. The repair, the recognition, the promotion, and now this. What does your gut tell you? Before Rosa could answer, her phone rang. Marcus Chen. She answered it. Rosa, hi. I hope I'm not interrupting your evening. No, it's fine. What's up? I got a call today from David Thornton. Rosa's stomach clenched. He told you about the offer. He did. Professional courtesy, he said. Rosa, I'm not going to pretend I'm happy about this. You've been here less than a week in your new position, and you're already transforming how we approach maintenance. The predictive maintenance program alone could save us millions. Losing you now would be a significant blow. I understand. But I also understand that this is an incredible opportunity for you. Director-level position, significant, salary increase, return to a city you know. I get it. Rosa waited for the sales pitch, the counteroffer, the plea to stay. But Marcus surprised her. What I want to say is this. Whatever you decide, make sure it's the right decision for you and your family. Don't stay at Patterson out of loyalty or guilt. Don't go to California just because the salary is higher. Think about where you'll be happiest, where you can do your best work, where you can build the life you want. That's not what I expected you to say. I've learned a lot in the past few days about assumptions and seeing people clearly. Part of seeing you clearly is recognizing that you have agency and choices. Whatever you decide, I'll support it. If you stay, great. We'll make sure you have every resource and opportunity to succeed. If you go, we'll throw you the best going-away party this plant has ever seen. After the call ended, Rosa sat with Daniel in comfortable silence. Outside, the first snow of the season had started falling, tiny flakes drifting past their window. Tell me about California, Daniel said. What did you love about it? Rosa smiled, remembering. The weather, the ocean, the diversity, the food. I had friends there, a community. The work was challenging and rewarding. I felt like I was at the top of my game. And what do you love about Chicago? Your family, the seasons, even the cold ones, the job I just started, the team I'm working with, the feeling that I'm building something new, not just returning to something old. Both sound good, Daniel observed. They do. That's the problem. Daniel set his book aside and leaned forward. Let me tell you what I see. I see a woman who has spent the last 3 years putting everyone else first. Me, my family, my needs. You took a job you were overqualified for because it had good insurance and flexible hours. You worked night shift so you could take me to medical appointments during the day. You put your career on hold, your dreams on hold, your whole life on hold. You had cancer, Daniel. Of course I put things on hold. And I love you for it. But Rosa, I'm better now. You don't have to keep sacrificing. So the question isn't what's best for me or my family or even what makes the most logical sense financially. The question is, what do you want? Rosa sat with that question. What did she want? She thought about the past few days, the satisfaction of diagnosing the problem with Line 3, the joy of working with Carlos and his team, teaching them new approaches, learning from their perspectives, the pride she felt walking across the factory floor in her engineering coveralls, being acknowledged and respected for her skills. She thought about Linda Morrison's policy changes, the commitment to seeing talent wherever it existed, the apprenticeship program Marcus wanted to build, the opportunity to shape not just maintenance procedures, but workplace culture. She thought about Friday night, standing in front of that broken machine, knowing she could fix it, having the chance to prove it, the looks on the engineers' faces when the machine came back to life, the feeling of being seen, of being valued, of mattering. "I want to stay," she said quietly. "I want to stay in Chicago." Daniel smiled, then called David Thornton and tell him thank you, but no thank you. It's a lot of money to turn down. It is, but money isn't everything. You said that yourself. Rosa picked up her phone, then put it down. Again. I need to do this right. I need to talk to Marcus first, make sure Patterson can offer me the kind of role and responsibilities that will keep me challenged and growing. I don't want to stay just to stay. I want to stay because it's the right move for my career and my life. That's my Rosa, Daniel said, always thinking strategically. The next morning, Rosa arrived at the plant early and went straight to Marcus's office. He was already there, going through production reports with his first coffee of the day. "Rosa, come in. You're here early. I wanted to talk to you before the day got busy. About the California offer." Marcus set down his coffee. "Okay. I'm planning to turn it down. I want to stay at Patterson. But I need to know what that means for my career path here. The director position in California would have given me leadership experience, strategic input, the chance to shape policy and procedure across multiple facilities. Can Patterson offer me that kind of growth trajectory?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, considering. "Let me be honest with you. Patterson is a smaller operation than Precision Dynamics. We don't have multiple facilities or the same scale. But what we do have is opportunity for innovation and leadership that might actually be harder to achieve in a larger, more established organization." He pulled up a document on his computer. "I've been working on this since our conversation yesterday. It's a proposal for a new position, Director of Maintenance and Process Innovation. You would oversee not just the maintenance team, but also lead initiatives to improve our manufacturing processes, implement new technologies, develop training programs. You'd have budget authority, strategic input, and a seat at the leadership table." Rosa scanned the document. The scope was impressive, broader in some ways than the California offer. "What about salary?" "I can't match California's $160,000. The best I can do right now is $115,000. But it comes with performance bonuses tied to measurable improvements in uptime, efficiency, and cost savings. If you achieve the kind of results I think you can, your total compensation could actually exceed the California offer." "And the team I'd be managing?" "Currently, that would be the 5 maintenance engineers we have, but the position includes authorization to hire additional staff as needed. If the predictive maintenance program works as well as I think it will, we'll need to expand the team, and you'd be leading that expansion." Rosa read through the entire proposal carefully. It was comprehensive, well thought out, and genuinely exciting. "This is more than I expected. You've proven you can do exceptional work under pressure. I want to see what you can do with time, resources, and authority. I think you could transform how we operate." "When would this position start?" "Immediately. We'd announce it at this afternoon's all-hands meeting." "Rosa, I know California is tempting. It's familiar, it's prestigious, it's a lot of money. But here you have the chance to build something from the ground up, to create systems and programs that could become models for the entire industry. That kind of impact, that kind of legacy, you can't always find that in established organizations." Rosa thought about her conversation with Daniel, about what she wanted: leadership, impact, challenge, recognition, the opportunity to make a real difference. "I'll need that in writing," she said. "The position description, the salary, the performance bonus structure, all of it. I'll have it to you by noon. Then you have a deal." Marcus stood and offered his hand. Rosa shook it, feeling the weight and promise of this new beginning. That afternoon's all-hands meeting was standing room only. Word had spread that there was going to be a major announcement, and the entire factory seemed to have turned out. Workers from all 3 shifts, office staff, management, everyone packed into the main break room. Linda Morrison stood at the front, with Marcus beside her and Rosa standing slightly to the side. "Thank you all for coming," Linda began. "I know there's been a lot of talk this week about the Line 3 situation, about how we solved it, about the changes we're making. I want to take a moment to recognize the person at the center of all this, Rosa Delgado." There was applause, and Rosa felt herself blushing as all eyes turned to her. Many of you know that Rosa worked in housekeeping for the past 8 months. What you might not know is that she has 15 years of experience in industrial maintenance and engineering. Through a combination of flawed systems and bad luck, she ended up in a position that didn't utilize her skills. That changed last week when she diagnosed and helped repair a problem that had stumped our entire engineering team. Linda paused, letting that sink in. Rosa's contribution didn't just save Line 3. It saved this plant and your jobs. The lost production costs and penalties we were facing would have forced us to shut down. Rosa's expertise, her leadership, and her dedication prevented that. More applause, louder this time. We've promoted Rosa to Senior Industrial Maintenance Engineer, but I'm pleased to announce that as of today, she's taking on a new role, Director of Maintenance and Process Innovation. In this position, she'll be leading our efforts to modernize our maintenance approaches, implement predictive technologies, and improve our overall operational efficiency. The applause was enthusiastic now, and Rosa saw genuine happiness on the faces around her. Carlos was grinning and giving her a thumbs up. Jenny was applauding so hard it looked like her hands might hurt. "But this isn't just about Rosa," Linda continued. "It's about what her story tells us about our organization. We almost lost an incredibly talented person because our systems couldn't see past a job title and a resume. Gap. We're changing those systems. We're implementing new policies to ensure we recognize talent wherever it exists, regardless of what position someone currently holds." She outlined the new hiring review processes, the cross-functional teams, the shadow program. "We're committed to being an organization where people are valued for their skills and contributions, not just their job titles. Where someone like Rosa can be recognized and elevated, and where we don't miss out on talent because of rigid thinking." After the meeting, Rosa found herself surrounded by well-wishers. Workers she'd cleaned up after for 8 months were shaking her hand, congratulating her, thanking her. It was overwhelming and humbling and wonderful. Carlos pulled her aside. "So, I heard about the California offer. News travels fast. Small plant. Everyone knows everything. I'm glad you're staying. The team needs you. Hell, I need you. You've taught me more in a week than I learned in the past year. You're a good engineer, Carlos. You just needed a fresh perspective, which is exactly what you bring. Don't ever doubt your value here." As the day wound down, Rosa stood on the factory floor, watching Line 3 operate smoothly, the other lines humming around it. This was her domain now, her responsibility, her opportunity to make a real impact. Her phone buzzed. A text from David Thornton. "Got your email. Disappointed, but I understand. If you ever change your mind, the door's open. You're one of the best, Rosa." She typed back, "Thank you for the opportunity and the kind words. I'm exactly where I need to be." And she was. Not because Chicago was better than California, or because Patterson was better than Precision Dynamics, but because this was where she could build something new, where she could make a difference, where she was valued and recognized. She thought about her abuela's words, about taking pride in the work regardless of what others thought. But it was nice. She had to admit when others recognized the value too. Daniel was waiting when she got home that evening, and she told him about the meeting, the announcement, the congratulations. "I'm proud of you," he said, pulling her into a hug. "Not just for what you accomplished, but for knowing what you wanted and choosing it." "It was scary," Rosa admitted, "turning down that much money, walking away from a prestigious position. But this feels right. This feels like mine." They ordered takeout and ate dinner while watching the snow fall outside their window. Tomorrow, Rosa would start her new role, begin building the programs and systems she'd envisioned. There would be challenges, setbacks, difficult decisions. But tonight, she was content. Content in the knowledge that she'd been seen, valued, and recognized. Content in the choice she'd made. Content in the work that lay ahead. 3 months later, Rosa stood on a stage in downtown Chicago, accepting the Regional Manufacturing Excellence Award. Her name was engraved on the plaque, her achievements read aloud to an audience of industry leaders and professionals. Marcus and Linda were in the audience, along with Carlos, Jenny, Tom, and Derek. Daniel sat in the front row, beaming with pride. The president of Patterson Manufacturing had flown in from corporate headquarters to attend. In her acceptance speech, Rosa talked about the importance of seeing people clearly, of recognizing talent wherever it exists, of building systems and cultures that value contribution over credentials. "I spent 8 months as invisible as the work I did," she said, "cleaning bathrooms, mopping floors, taking out trash. Honest work, important work, but work that made me invisible to most people. It took a crisis to make me visible, to give me the chance to prove what I could do." She looked out at the audience. "But how many other talented people are invisible in your organizations right now? How many Rosa Delgados are cleaning your floors, answering your phones, working in your warehouses, doing jobs that don't reflect their capabilities? What systems do you have in place to see them, to recognize them, to give them opportunities?" The audience was silent, engaged, considering. "This award is an honor, and I'm grateful for it. But the real honor is getting to do work that matters, with people who value what I bring. The real honor is being seen." The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, as Rosa mingled with other award recipients and industry leaders, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find a woman in her 30s, well-dressed and professional. "Ms. Delgado, I'm Jennifer Wu. I'm the VP of Operations for Midwest Manufacturing Group. I heard your speech, and I'd love to talk to you about consulting for our organization. We have 15 facilities across the region, and I think we could benefit from your expertise in both technical operations and organizational culture." Rosa smiled. "I'd be happy to discuss it. Let me give you my card." As the evening progressed, more conversations, more connections, more opportunities. The invisible woman had become not just visible, but sought after, valued, recognized. But the moment Rosa treasured most came later, when the official events had ended and the Patterson team gathered at a nearby restaurant to celebrate. They sat around a large table, sharing stories, laughing, toasting Rosa's success. "Remember when I said you were nobody?" Marcus said, his voice serious despite the celebratory atmosphere. "That's probably the stupidest thing I've ever said in my professional life." "Probably," Carlos interjected, and everyone laughed. "Definitely," Marcus corrected. "Rosa, you've changed this organization in ways that go far beyond fixing one machine. You've changed how we think about talent, about hiring, about valuing people. You've made us better." Rosa raised her glass. "To teams that see people clearly, to second chances, to doing work that matters." "To Rosa," Linda added. "To Rosa," everyone echoed. As Rosa looked around the table at the faces of her colleagues, her team, her friends, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From California to Chicago, from engineer to housekeeper, back to engineer and now director, from invisible to recognized, from dismissed as nobody to celebrated as somebody. But in her heart, Rosa knew the truth. She had always been somebody, always been talented, capable, valuable. The only thing that had changed was that now other people could see it too, and that, she thought as she clinked glasses with her team, made all the difference. Outside, the Chicago winter night was cold and clear, stars visible above the city lights. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new work to be done. But tonight, Rosa Delgado was exactly where she belonged, celebrated and valued and seen. And it felt like coming home.